Our guests on the Goodyear Hotline, including the NFL insider Dan Graziano, coming up at 6:40 a.m. Eastern. A reminder to tune into Greeny's show, which follows ours on many of these ESPN radio stations this morning. Greeny will have Mike Holmgren get to his thoughts on the Packers. Be very interesting to get his thoughts on the Packers. And the NBC analyst Chris Collinsworth from Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin right into Greeny weekday mornings on ESPN Radio. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Mahomes got it done last year, and he's almost got it done this year.
The job's not finished. When we went into the season, we weren't talking about going to the Super Bowl. We were talking about winning it again, and we're trying to run it back. And we mean that, and I'm excited for the opportunity to go out there and play against a great football team and try to do that.
Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. Key, the question simply is, getting to the Super Bowl is an amazing accomplishment for most teams. Everybody's journey is a little bit different. Your thoughts, and then Jay's on whether the moment of just getting to the Super Bowl already qualifies as a success for the Chiefs and the Bucs, two teams in two completely different places when you really think about it.
I think when you look at the AFC conference as a whole, clearly the best quarterback in the AFC conference coming into the year was Patrick Mahomes. And the makeup of the team, the head coaching, all of those sort of things led us all to believe that the Kansas City Chiefs would be landing in Tampa Bay the week of the Super Bowl. And that is what's happening. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at it, it's not a surprise at all that they would get back to the Super Bowl. The key for them, though, is winning the Super Bowl. Right. If they win the Super Bowl, then there's something to talk about. If they lose the Super Bowl, it's just kind of like, okay, they lost the Super Bowl. We've seen this movie before where teams have been young and exciting and the quarterback's been young and exciting, and we're like, oh, they're going to be around forever. And then they lose the Super Bowl, and then they, for whatever reason, they can't figure out how to win another one for a period of time. And I think you could point to the team that lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Aaron Rodgers is yet to get back to the Super Bowl again. Yeah. Or you could point to the Seattle Seahawks in a young Russell Wilson with a dominant defense has yet to win another Super Bowl. Got back, but it's like they can't get out of their own way now. Now look at the Rams situation. They didn't win it, but we figured, oh, they're going to be okay. Jared Goff, $100 million. Oh, my God, he had an MVP-type season and went to the Super Bowl. Can't get out of their own way. So as you start to look at it, the key thing will be winning the Super Bowl. If they win the Super Bowl, that thing is getting ready to drop another 3 in the next 6 years or something like
Dynastic.
that. Yes.
We can start saying it.
Yes.
But
it's too early right now.
The only thing I would say, the only comp that kind of makes sense is Aaron Rodgers. Just when I start looking at Pat Mahomes, right, like MVP, Super Bowl champion, and now back in the Super Bowl. Like, here's one thing that I think people have to kind of put into play when you think about athletes, first and foremost. You know, these practical debates about, hey, should they be successful if they reach the Super Bowl? For somebody who just likes to play sports leisurely, of course, that's successful, right? But none of these guys think practically. None of them think reasonably when it comes to their sport. That's what's allowed them to get to the 1% of what they're doing anyway. Now, take that with understanding that mentality and now think about Patrick Mahomes, times that by 10, right? Like, there's none of these guys are going into this game, regardless of how fans look at it on the outside saying, you know, we got here, what a great year. It's, hey, we have Travis Kelce in his prime. We have Patrick Mahomes in his prime. We have all these weapons, players in their prime. I want to go get it right now. And look, maybe in 20 years, if they win a couple more, whatever happens, maybe Patrick Mahomes and these guys can take a step back and look at it realistically and say, you know what, we got there, man, that was crazy. What a run. But while you're in these moments, you know, every year I played in college, I was 95-13 in college. Every year we didn't win it, it felt like a failure.
You lost too many games, Jay. 13's way too many.
I agree, Key. And the two teams we lost to each year, the year we didn't win it, those teams ended up in a national championship. Now, people might call me crazy, Key. I remember the chip that we won, but I also remember the ones that we lost to the teams that we should have beat that got there. And those hurt more than ever. And that's how unreasonable athletes look at it, right? Because that's what the level we want to get to.
I was trying to be funny with the 13, Jay.
I know you were trying to be funny.
Laugh.
I was in a serious state of mind right now.
Laugh a little bit. Let your guard down, please.
Hey, Jay, let's go to you on the reverse side here. The Bucs obviously snapped the NFL's second longest playoff drought. They had not won a playoff game since Key's Super Bowl championship team. They'd been to the playoffs
you mentioned
in
our
07, lost in the wild card.
Speaking of our Super Bowl team, we thought that we could have had 2 more in us. But guess what? He just mentioned they hadn't won a playoff game since our Super Bowl. We actually thought, we getting ready to run it back next year. Didn't work. It didn't happen because so many different things got in the way.
Took nearly 20 years, not quite 20, but nearly 20 years to win another playoff game. They did make the playoffs in 07, lost in the wild card round. So, all right, so with that as the backdrop, Jay, right? Haven't been to the playoffs in 13 years. Only the Browns had a longer playoff drought. Of course, they both snapped it. Is this season already a success for Tampa Bay when you consider how far they've come in a calendar year?
Yes for Tampa Bay. No for Tom Brady, but yes for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, because look, we were talking about this team, mid-season potentially not making the playoffs to a degree. We talk about them barely making it in, scrapping in, and Amir Key talking about the fact that they may not make the playoffs. They had a difficult road. Obviously, you bring in Antonio Brown, you bring in all the Gronk, you bring in a lot of these pieces. First year, Tom Brady under Bruce Arians. How does he equip to that system during a pandemic? No preseason. It takes a lot for these teams to come together and click at the right time. I actually thought we would be talking about Tampa Bay next year as a team that could compete with the Kansas City Chiefs to win it. I wasn't sure they were going to get there this year, but look, I think this season has been a success, but also I think for Tom Brady, a guy who's 43 years old, he's used to being at the pinnacle. He wants to win it more than anything, and I think that's what's starting to rub off on Tampa Bay, that internally, hey, this is success, but it's time to go out and get extra gravy because we have Tom Brady, and we don't know how much longer Tom Brady's going to play this game.
I think Jay's right on this. When you look at Tom Brady, it's so much, right? Whether it's New England and Boston, whether it's look at me, I'm winning without you, whether it's people saying he's winning without them. So he needs to finish the deal, him personally. For the organization and the team and the fan base, the satisfaction has already been put together as a happy moment because they won a playoff game and they went to the playoffs. They had a playoff drought for as many years as you said, Zubin.
Right.
So that's a success in itself, considering that as you look at it, at some point in the season, I and other people started looking at it and going, man, they may not even make the playoffs the way they're playing. What the hell is going on? But now that they've gotten, obviously, to the Super Bowl, along the way, as they started chipping away, that started to resonate to the point where it's like, we might actually win it. But they're running up against Kansas City. So if they don't win it, it's still a success. It's somewhat not successful for Brady because all he does is win Super Bowl. So it's kind of like, I expect to win. I'm Tom bleeping Brady, period. I mean, that's just...
Let's effing go, right?
Yeah, I'm Brady. So it's a success for the Bucs. It won't be a success until Brady wins the Super Bowl.
Last thing I would say, you might give Stefanski the head coach of the year, and it might be easy to give Chase Young the defensive Rookie of the year. Aaron Rodgers might win the MVP. I think the biggest domino to fall, and the most obvious one of all, is one we haven't talked about at all, with all due respect to those three guys and what they might do. Jason Licht, the Bucs general manager, is probably the executive of the year for pulling off one